Green Bay Packers, Ben said, a secondary option in the passing game, and I think I completely agree with him. Aaron Rodgers, just like we talked about with Brady, get that guy some weapons.
Yeah, and look, I'm not even sure that fixes it. I think we've always assumed, it's been this debate, which is the problem? What is the problem, Rodgers or the scheme? Now, the scheme changed and Rodgers was still the same guy, so at least now we're sort of pointing towards Rodgers. But there's always the mitigation of, well, he's only got Devontae Adams, and even Adams missed time, and he just doesn't trust any of these other guys, like the Brady thing, right? He doesn't trust any of them. But they've kind of thrown quite a lot at this point. Now, did they all not pan out, or is there some degree of blame for Aaron Rodgers not actually helping these guys develop?
They've all kind of like flashed some skills.
Right.
But I also don't think they're that good.
But that's the thing. How much of it is them not being that good, and how much of it is Rodgers just doesn't trust that guy, so he's not giving them the chances?
No, it's a fair question.
So, like, if they do your thing in the draft this year and double up a receiver again, now they've got like 5 guys that are all under the age of 25, and Rodgers doesn't trust any of them. And it's still Devontae Adams and no one else. Like,
I'm not expecting them to double up. I mean, they're starting to have some holes elsewhere. I think they've got some O-line issues that are, they're going to have to address sooner rather than later. Linebacker, cornerback is another spot where you just continue to throw resources at, even though they went through a phase a couple of years ago where they drafted a bunch of corners and a phase where they drafted a bunch of receivers, which I love. I like drafting in bulk. I like drafting those valuable positions where they're tough to hit on, but you just put a lot of resource to it, so you at least hit on one or hit on two, and they might have to do that again at corner. And then linebacker is always kind of been a Packers issue, kind of like the Giants.
Yeah, for a while.
They
haven't really had a good good linebacker for quite some time.
Just like a really good coverage linebacker in Green Bay.
That'd be nice.
That's what they haven't had
for
a while. But I think at this point in Rodgers' career, weapons, man. Because when he trusts Devontae, who is an awesome route runner and gets open, he just peppers the ball his way and they move the chains.
How soon do they start looking for a succession plan at quarterback?
Always. I think you always do.
Okay.
So now. Starting now.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the guy there. It's just always look. And that's always been a Packers theory.
He's got to be like the same age as Brett Favre was when they drafted him, right? Now?
Yeah, but like 37 is like the new 32, remember?
Oh, of course.
So it's okay. But yeah, I think right now you start looking at the next quarterback in Green Bay.
That's the Packers done.
All right, Minnesota Vikings. What are your thoughts here?
They desperately need a cornerback that doesn't suck. Because they don't really
We said
have
it differently
one.
here.
Oh, yeah?
Cornerbacks who can cover as well as the Vikings, linebackers and safeties.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They don't have cornerbacks that are good. And the ones that they do have that are okay are all hitting free agency. So they're stuck with Xavier Rhodes, who's been bad lately. You have Mackenzie Alexander and Trey Waynes, I think both free agents at this point.
Yep.
You might keep those guys around as like part of your core, but if they're starting, it's probably an issue. If they're number ones, you're screwed.
Right.
So they desperately need that. They also need a third wide receiver. It's amazing how hard they find to discover that when everyone else seems to be able to turn up slot receivers almost by accident.
You think they didn't run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets? Yeah. You think that was based off personnel and obviously Thielen being hurt for a big chunk of it, or do you think that's what their preference is with 2 pretty good tight ends and they use a fullback because of the Kubiak scheme?
I mean, I think it doesn't help. I think they probably don't. I think the scheme doesn't use many 3 wide receiver sets anyway, but they certainly weren't helped by the fact that they couldn't because their third wide receivers weren't good. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be a slot guy because both Thielen and Diggs can play well from the slot. They just need a third option because A, at some point, one of those guys is probably going to miss some time. And B, even when they don't, you're going to rotate guys in enough that the third guy is going to get playing time even if you don't run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. You need someone better than Treadwell to be that third guy.
The other thing, too, is, because the nature of the league where you're always trying to see how other teams had success, Kyle Shanahan's the guy who had a ton of success running the ball and mixing things up, and he used all of his personnel. 3 receivers, 4 receivers, 2 tight ends, fullback. He used all of it. And if you are in that Shanahan, Kubiak, system, and you're looking for those added wrinkles, and you're looking to what Kyle did, it's those versatile wide receivers like a Deebo Samuel that he brought in that kind of separated that scheme from the rest of them, which, it's not just outside zone anymore.
I mean, the other thing is, I think when you start looking at where the Vikings could use some help, I don't love the spot that this roster is in because you can make a pretty good case that they could upgrade 4 of the 5 offensive line spots, let alone depth. You can make a case they pretty desperately need some interior defensive line help. Those guys, A, aren't what they were, Linval Joseph, and B, they don't really have that 3-tech, dominant pass rusher. That could be upgraded as well. Like this roster all of a sudden has quite a lot of holes in it.
Reminds me a little bit, I always make this comparison, but the Eagles right before their Super Bowl run, where overall the roster was good, but they were weak in some serious spots. A little bit like kind of like the way the Texans are, where it's like overall the roster is good, but they're weak in some, not so nice spots. So,
and also, at some point you need to look at what happens beyond Kirk Cousins.
Do you think So yes, he's got 1 year left technically. So are you going to lock him up? Or are you going to look for the next guy?
And he's going to want like all of the money in the world. So if you're going to lock him up, you have to bear in mind that you're talking about like a $40 million quarterback, which is nuts.
Of course, because he's like, we're down 2 touchdowns. I got to get that next contract. Let me just check down, save the passer rating. He's got it. He's still got that.
I mean,
going through his brain.
So he's going to end his career kind of like Darrelle Revis in terms of that dude was a master at maximizing every last dollar.
Every dollar. Yes.
Cousins is on that trajectory, and he's going to end his career with like the best contract history in the NFL. And this next step is like how you break that. You go, no, look, I'm not paying you.
You know what I think is frustrating for a fan base is when you...
Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins can be frustrating for a fan base. I think it's when you... Like the Vikings are known as the team that just drafts 1 million defensive backs. And here they are in serious need of defensive backs. Right? I feel like that's frustrating because I have no problem with doing that, but it's like when you're known for that and you do put a lot of resources to it and then it eventually becomes a need again, clearly the rest of your other parts of your roster must be depleted because along the way you neglected them, and then you still have this need that you always seem to attack. That's where I don't love the way where the Vikings are from a roster standpoint.
I mean, I would think anytime you consistently throw a lot of resources at a position in the draft and miss and can't get, it's still a need, it must be frustrating as hell.
Chargers O-line.
Right, Chargers O-line. I mean, the Vikings have done it on the offensive line. The Vikings did it before with edge rusher. Remember, they drafted one in the first round for like 4 straight years.
Did.
Couldn't find one, ended up having to trade for Jared Allen to fix it.
Yeah.
There's a ton of these situations throughout the league where you just, either you're bad at evaluating that position or you've just been unlucky in the draft because it still remains something of a crapshoot and you have to try and fix it a different way.
All right, let's move on to the Chicago Bears. Their biggest need, Sam?
A quarterback that isn't Mitchell Trubisky. Having said that, I think they can fix that without the draft. I don't think the draft is, well, A, they don't have the draft picks to do it.
Right.
But B, I think there's a couple of options in free agency that are really intriguing for Chicago. Who
do you like the most for the Bears with all the free agents or the potential trades with that? So that includes Cam Newton and Andy Dalton, right?
Honestly, I love Tom Brady for the Bears.
What?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this recently, and it keeps making more and more sense to me. So the Bears, I think, are actually in a slightly different spot of the Vikings. I think they have a better roster overall. And the thing that's holding them back is that Mitchell Trubisky is their quarterback. You put Tom Brady in that offense, I'm more convinced than ever that his problems last year were nobody getting open. You put Brady in that offense with A, reasonable offensive line, not amazing, but he'll make it look better. B, some receivers that can get open. Allen Robinson was constantly open. They've got other guys that can separate. C, like Matt Nagy's offense last year was bad, but a lot of that was because he had to idiot-proof it for Trubisky, and apparently he was a better idiot than the idiot-proof offense. So you get Nagy back to like running the thing he wants to run with Brady. I like that.
And the defense is still pretty good. So Brady of the Bears.
Brady at the Bears. I also kind of like Dalton. I think Dalton makes some sense. But trade is tougher because you don't have the capital, right? You're in the same spot with that as you are with the draft.
I also don't see them moving on from Mitchell Trubisky.
Well, so the problem is they're definitely stuck with him there, right? So I think if they're going to do it, it needs to be a relatively low rent option. So that's what makes the Brady thing tough. Bridgewater, intriguing because I don't know what his contract cost will be, but he might be cheap enough that you could kind of make that happen.
Here's the tricky part, right? The human element of this. Trubisky's the guy that turned off the TVs that were criticizing him in the locker room and all that stuff. If there's even a hint that they're looking at, I mean, there are some big name free agents, many of which, all of which are better than Mitch Trubisky, right? There's some big names. if word even gets out that they're flirting with one of these guys.
Oh, he's done. But at that, I mean, he's done anyway. They just might not know it. Like, he doesn't know it. But he's like, so I was on Bears radio yesterday, right? One of the questions he asked was, is Mitchell Trubisky salvageable? To which my literal verbatim answer was, no. And that's the problem. So he's already a dead man walking, right? You don't avoid bringing in somebody because it might make Trubisky broken. He's already broken.
I agree.
You know what might be the best thing they could do? They need what happened to Tennessee to happen, right? You bring in someone.
Bring in Mariota.
There you go. They needed to bring in a backup who then, once you're 6 games in, it's like, this is a disaster. We have to bench this guy who comes in and redeems himself. Mariota. He does to Trubisky what Tannehill did to him. Trubisky plays so bad in the first 6 games, you have to throw in Mariota, and suddenly in a better environment, he kind of looks okay. Done. Fixed.
Yeah.
Next.
No, I'm with you on the Mariota thing. The Brady thing is intriguing because I don't know if they're really being talked about a whole lot.
It's not.
Because they don't have flashy playmakers other than Allen Robinson's awesome.
Right.
But I think Brady could make the rest of those guys work, like him and Tariq Cohen.
And of course, remember, free agency, they've got a chance to add to it.
Right, they could add to it. That is an intriguing potential option. And then rounding out the NFC North, the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of rumors that they were going to trade Matthew Stafford. The cap hit is just enormous to do that, so I don't see that happening. We talked about a succession plan for Darius Slay at cornerback. I just think it's cornerback in general. You talk about trying to find something year over year. Trying to find the cornerback opposite Darius Slay has been quite elusive for the Lions. The Tease-Tabor experiment's over. Justin Coleman's been solid in the slot. The Rashawn Melvins of the world. I mean, they just haven't had...
Even Coleman got lit up.
Yeah, I mean, he's...
Basically, from the moment he made that crazy play where he punched the ball out at the goal line to save a touchdown, where he was kind of beaten before.
Chiefs game, right?
From that point on, he's
come back down to earth, right? But we had like a year plus of like decent play from him. But either way, the cornerback situation outside of Slay has been pretty dire in Detroit.
I don't know that there's much on this roster that couldn't use an upgrade. I think Oruwariye might work out as that second corner. I think he showed some potential.
There's just not enough there to bank on him being.
No, I mean, you would add
in the mix.
Even if he does, you would add a third guy, right?
For sure.
Because even if he turns out to be a viable starter and a good option opposite Slay, you're probably going to look at Slay's successor anyway. Like either way, you're adding another corner at some point. But I think there's a decent chance he could be the other starter and be good. But honestly, like, is there a single thing on this roster that you look at and go, they're set there?
No, I mean, I think the receiver position is good, is pretty good.
Yeah.
But you're not, like, Danny Amendola, right? Is he free agent again? I mean, it's Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, but there's always room to add to pass catchers. You got TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Like, they've got a pretty good group of playmakers, even though they've built this roster to be a run-stopping team. But they could always upgrade their pass rush situation, even though they brought in Trey Flowers last year. Cornerback's been an issue. And their linebackers, another place where they've invested a lot.
Best young duo in the NFL.
They have not had the best return, despite what some around the league think.
Some people are nuts.
Don't name names.
I didn't.
Though.
I didn't name a name. I just said some people are nuts.
Last year's second-round pick. What's his face there?
What's his face?
Jelani Tavai. He was one of those. Remember, you know how there's always one of those picks that Belichick makes in like
the one that like nobody else is thinking about for like the next day.
Now, Jelani Tavai was the guy. Nobody was going to draft him in the second round except Belichick and all of his disciples. The linebacker from Hawaii. He had a 60.5 grade last year. Again, like, okay, solid, okay, whatever. But him and Jared Day, like for a second round pick, not what you want. And he's more of like a Kyle Van Noy type, who's also a free agent. I could see Van Noy actually going back to Detroit. Now that he's in the Patriots role, has experience in that system, and Matt Patricia's worked with him, and then they slot him in there into that hybrid role that system loves. But I don't know that Tavai was a great pick in the second round paired with Jared Davis. So linebacker, an issue.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.